I can't say what's going to happen 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 500 years from now.
2 years from now.
Who knows?
In 2 years, we have several elections for, what is it, House and Senate. I think it's just House.
Yeah, we've got the 2 Senate ones that are going in Georgia right now, and then
those
in
are
2 years,
those are runoffs,
right,
which is
runoffs.
this year.
Yeah.
This is just the tail end of this year.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about in 2 years you have other elections.
Yeah.
So every 2 years we have significant power-based shifts in the U.S.
But
even
it
if they're
wouldn't
minor.
just be the U.S. that would have to make those decisions. It would be the entire
And the
population
entire
of the other
world,
country.
because we arguably in a lot of ways are social leaders for the world. Our military preeminence is neck and neck with only 2 other nations on the planet. And economically, we're superior to Russia, even though Russia's military is comparable in fear factor to ours. We take them very seriously. China is the outlier because they have less brain trust in mechanical sophistication, but they've got massive actual productive capacity and a tremendous ability to rally their people to do individual projects, where we have more trouble. China doesn't have to convince anybody. They just tell them, we're going to destroy you, or you're going to do what we say.
Yeah. Yep.
And we're starting to let them control our politics. I don't know about you, but I would much rather leave the rest of the world's money and under the table influence out of our politics and have that discussion with my neighbor who disagrees with me, and I want that person to succeed. I think that's a much healthier way to run the United States. And it's better for the whole world, because if we are stable, that helps stabilize the nature of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
We don't need to go to war.
No.
But we have been consistently at war for our whole history. And a lot of the things that got us into war, like remember the Alamo and Pearl Harbor and the Iraq weapons of mass destruction, have a lot of questions about, did we actually set the chess pieces in play on purpose?
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, at those times, that may have actually been the right thing to do. Because Japan was rapidly militarizing, and their military culture, as we found out towards the end of World War II in the Pacific, it took 2 nukes to stop them, to change their minds. And not just 2 nukes. These are guys that truly believed that when we took prisoners in the civilian population, we were going to murder the children, rape the women, and then murder them. And on Okinawa, they were jumping off cliffs with their babies in their hands.
Yep.
We did not want to invade Japan.
No, it was propaganda. It was all their propaganda.
Not just propaganda, it was imbued in their culture. It goes back thousands of years that this is how they survived as a nation. That you bloody well, anybody shows up on your shore, you kill them.
Yeah.
Anybody disagrees with you, you find out who's better with the sword, and he's the boss. It's really, you laugh because the alternative is to take it completely seriously.
Well.
And I get that.
Yeah.
It's a psychological trick. But it really is true about the Japanese culture. And when we beat them, hands down, it broke their culture. You can see it in their movies. You can see it in their way they act today. You can see it in their drop in their population. You can see it in all kinds of features of their society. You can see it in the earliest Godzilla cartoons.
I think losing a war is...
It's not just losing a war.
It is, and it's not.
Not in the Japanese culture.
In the Japanese culture, there's more to it than that. It's an honor thing, and Like,
It was
that.
it was their whole cultural identity.
Yes.
It's not even like Germany losing a war during the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
Impactful, sure.
It changed a lot about their culture.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
And it wasn't just losing a war and you have to kowtow and pay money out. No, we sent our general to become their emperor.
Yeah.
And the emperor of Japan had to basically bow to someone who didn't even stack up as the top leader of our nation.
Yeah.
He was only a 4-star general.
Yeah. We did a lot to them after they lost. But
And we were actually the biggest thing that kicked their morality was that all their propaganda was largely false, that we were much better captors than they were.
yeah.
And you look at the rape of Nanking
Mm-hmm.
and how they refuse to, even today, they don't want to acknowledge what their own generals did.
Yeah.
Because as part of your culture, you just don't acknowledge that stuff. That the loser is not even a human being. And they deserve to be tortured because they're just low.
Yeah.
And then they had to put themselves in that moral position of being the loser,
Mm-hmm.
the one who surrendered.
And then not being treated how they thought losers should be treated, I guess.
To be treated well.
Yeah.
And to find that it was a relief to them.
Yeah.
To have us go there and rebuild their economy and teach them manufacturing. It humiliated every single one of them on a fundamental level. It's part of the reason they're not breeding now. And we taught them not to breed. We told them, our academia told them that they were overpopulated. There was too many Japanese. Which
Can't
is the...
comment on that because I don't know enough about that either.
It can take 20 years of research to really figure that out.
Yep.
Which I've done. And at a certain point, when you learn something, especially something that's not in common knowledge, you have a responsibility to try and teach it.
Mm-hmm.
Or to put people on the road to finding it.
Yes, because my responsibility after being told something like that is not to believe it because you told me,
Sure.
but to go do my own research and see
Well,
how I feel.
I would say you trust and verify.
Yeah.
Right? You trust that I might be right, so you go and check and you look for what is the corroborating information.
Yes.
And who have I been ignoring? What analysts have I not been listening to? Yeah. And you look at the breakdown by states of who was winning and who was losing recently, and there were 2 states that were purple. Why were they purple instead of red and blue? Because if you mix red and blue, you get purple. And
purple on whose map? Or do you just mean general? In general, they were.
if
split
you
down
take
middle
the
and said
color
purple.
in color theory.
Oh no, I know. I'm an artist.
Okay,
But
so you know
like,
that part.
Yeah.
And it's really an interesting thing because the color purple goes back to the history of shells in the Mediterranean, and only the royalty, not even the poor royalty, but the
Yep.
big boys,
Because
they
of how
wore
they had to make the
purple because it was a
colors.
pain in the ass to make.
Yep.
And nobody wanted to do it because it was a stinky ass job.
Yes.
Well, a lot of jobs were stinky ass jobs, you know. But when you're a peon,
You do what you're told.
you stomp the grapes. And it was interesting to me the distribution of states that were red are a physical, tactical advantage to China should they invade.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's our west coast, and less so our east coast.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the arc from Washington State, Oregon, California, Arizona, and New Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
those are exactly the most important pieces of real estate to dominate in a Chinese invasion.
Mhm.
Because guess what's on the other side of the ocean?
Yep. Yep. It would make sense.
And they have an incredibly fast capacity to produce ships. They produce them in segments that are so precise that they push the segments together, 6 or 8 segments together, to make one aircraft carrier, and they just weld it together. They can make ships faster than we can.
Mhm.
In fact, their infrastructure is so well developed that it would be a significant amount of time before we could catch up, which is exactly a whole lot more time than it would take before they would win the war. Because wars would not, that level of war would not be, it would not take long.